What's up, Predators? Today we're going to be building my new arrows for this upcoming hunting season, and I'm going to teach you how to do it. By the end of this video, you're going to be an arrow making master. You're going to know all the ins and outs, and you can apply these skills to your own arrow build. This video is going to be for building the most precise, weight matched arrows you can possibly get. So come along with me and let's build some arrows, and let's join the conversation down below in the comments, because this may not be the way you do everything, and this may have been something that you had never thought of doing. So I want to hear the conversation going wild, and let's talk about building some high quality arrows. During this video, if you hear this sound, it means that I'm putting a note on the screen here that's probably very important. So if you're just listening to this as you listen to like a podcast or something, make sure you tune in or check out the screen and see what's going on whenever you hear that sound. Now, this video is going to be a deep dive, so make sure you follow down with the chapters below if you want to jump to a specific part of the build. So without further ado, let's do further. The first thing we're going to talk about is the tools that you need. So the first thing that I've got on the table here, this big guy right here, is an arrow saw. And this arrow saw, I borrowed this from a friend. I don't actually own one, but there's a couple of different ways to get these. And so this one right here is the Carbon Express arrow saw. And this is a good saw and very professional saw and everything. I have another friend that does have the mod saw, which is a much cheaper version. I think you can get the mod saw for about $150, which is actually a really great deal. But this over here, like I say, is the Carbon Express saw. You can also, if you don't want to buy a whole arrow saw, like you're not going to be doing this all the time, then you can use something like the Bass Pro Shop or Cabela's. They actually will cut your arrows for free. I'll apologize if you can hear it. There's people cutting down trees on my neighbor's property, so it might be a little bit loud. But the second tool here is going to be some kind of arrow spinner. I like this one right here. A lot of people use the, the Arizona archery one. That has little tiny spinning discs on the end. I prefer this one. This one is a Korean one from Whale Archery. I prefer this one because it's a nice solid bar here, and it's got wider bearings in here, so that's going to make the stability of the arrow on there. Like, I'm not going to see any wobbling because of those little tiny discs. Basically, whenever the arrow is resting on here, any wobble that I see in the arrow is going to be just from the arrow itself. Cool thing about this too, which I left it inside, but is that it's got an arrow squaring tool built in as well. So all you have to do is just slide this on one end here. There we go. And then basically now whenever I spin the end of my arrow right here, I can square off that end of the arrow. Arrow squaring, honestly, is one of the most important things. Like, I've seen people that have cut arrows with even like Dremels, just hand cut them, which I don't recommend. But you can also even take an arrow that's not cut perfectly straight and square it out really well. So next over here, you're going to need an arrow grain scale. This is just a small folding scale that basically gives you the ability to weigh out all your components. And this is going to be a really important part of making sure that everything is precise. Lighted Nocks that I've got here, I already weighed most of these out, and they go from 21.3 to 21.5 or 21.8 grains. So again, making sure you can weigh these things out is really important, because let's say I get an insert that is just slightly lighter than the other one. I can pair that slightly lighter insert with the slightly heavier lighted Nock, and that's going to make sure that I can get the total arrow weight within the same range. Same thing with the field tips. Maybe one of these is 125.1, one of them is 125.6. I can literally pair that with the insert that is lighter to make sure that I'm exactly the perfect on my weight and everything, my weight distribution on these. So one of the first things I like to do, and I've already done this with all these arrows, is just to do a spin test real quick. Spin the arrows and make sure that they're all accurate. And so I just put it on the arrow spinner here. And just give it a little roll. I don't have to spin it real fast or anything like that. And it helps if you have a high contrast backdrop to see if there's any wobble or anything like that. So black arrow, white table works really well. So that way I can see if there's any wobble. Now, some people will cut from both ends. These right here are the V1 or the Elite from Victory, the Victory HLRs. And so these are all within 0.001 straightness. So from the one end of the arrow to the other, it's only going to deviate 0.001 inches one way or the other. So I have confirmed that they all spin perfectly well. It has happened before with some other arrows where, you know, they had like a little bit of wobble on the Nock end, and I have no problem. I don't care where the little label on the arrow lines up. I just want a straight arrow. So you can cut from either end of the arrow. Just make sure you know that beforehand. The only time you don't want to do that is whenever you have like a tapered arrow, like I know Victory or like Gorilla Stick or some of these other companies, they make tapered arrows. I think Easton does as well. So if you cut from a tapered arrow, you want to make sure you cut from the proper end, because you might unintentionally stiffen the spine the wrong way. Another thing you're going to need is a metallic Sharpie. And what that's going to do is, I don't like to, there's some people out there will just get the arrow length set to exactly what their draw is, and they'll have this much, you know, sticking out of the launcher there. I like to get that arrow tip as close, compensating for the collar as well, but I like to get that as close to my arrow launcher as possible, which is going to do a couple things. One is it's going to make your spine stiffer. So I have an 80-pound draw, with most of those charts out there say you need a 250 spine, right? Or 250 spine. But the spine is reported at usually about 28 inches. So if I'm going 27 inches, I just slightly increase the spine of my arrow. So when I'm building the arrows, again, I want to make sure that I have that length perfectly set. And honestly, with a arrow saw like this right here, the Carbon Express one or the mod saw, I can set that arrow length and make sure I just mark one arrow, and then I can cut all of them to that length. So basically what I'll do, that process looks like this. Take my Sharpie, and obviously you'll need somebody to do this unless you've got a draw board or something. I'm going to make sure that I have my correct knocks in there. So the ones that I'm going to end up with, okay? So if you're using lighted knocks, that means put your lighted knock in the arrow. If you're using just the standard knocks that come with the arrow, go ahead and use that one. So I'm going to draw my bow back. Okay. And I'm going to have somebody mark it. Basically, you see my arrow launcher there. I'm going to have somebody mark it just about an inch past that arrow launcher there. And that's going to make sure that I can get the appropriate length for my arrow, so that whenever I cut this out, I'm going to bring that arrow within a very short distance of the launcher. That means that I'm going to make it as short as possible and have the best spine for my arrow build. So with all that being said, today we're going to be building Victory HLR arrows. Okay. These are a very light GPI arrow. These are 203 arrow, which I'm usually been shooting 4mm arrows, but the difference in the 203 is so minimal as far as size of thickness goes. So what happens with the 203 arrows is that they require a little bit thinner wall versus the, you know, smaller 166 or 165 diameter arrows. So this makes it to where I can get a very light grain on it, or light grain per inch measurement on it. I've already marked that point. So this is how much arrow I'm going to be cutting off. They come in a 31-inch length. And basically I'm going to cut off that much. So whenever I put this in my arrow saw, basically I'm going to line that mark up right there with the actual saw itself, so that I can make sure that I cut all these to the same length. So all I have to do is mark one arrow. And same thing if you have somebody else doing it, like Bass Pro Shop or Villas or somebody like that. Basically, you just want to make sure that it's marked to the right length. So basically what I'm going to be cutting these to is, see right there, line it up. Okay. So right there, I'm going to be cutting these arrows to about 27.5 or so, a little bit less than 27.5 inches. My draw length is 28.5, but I'm cutting my arrows to about 27.5, a little longer than that. So if you don't know, if you don't have the ability to do all this, you don't have somebody to mark it for you, then you can always, again, go and just start with an inch less and you'll be good. Okay, so basically whenever I go and I cut the arrows, I'm going to make sure I have this butted all the way up against the end stop here, and I'm going to just kind of roll the arrow into it. It's like this motion right here. Basically, I'm rolling the arrow forward as I push it into the cutting, okay? And this is kind of why you need to square it, because usually you're cutting it like this, right? Whenever you're pushing it in there. But by squaring it afterwards is going to make sure that this is basically as straight as possible, because whenever I put my inserts and my components and my Nock in there, it's going to make sure that this is, you know, truly square, so that I don't have any kind of slight deviation in that insert or that component that's going into the arrow. So with that, we're going to go ahead and go, and now that I've got my saw set and everything, we're going to go ahead and start cutting. Okay, so first thing we do is, again, double check that we're lined up. Make sure this right here is nice and tight. So put in the end of the man. There we go. First cut done. Now we're going to cut the rest of them. So now that we've got that done, we're going to go ahead and square the arrows. And so basically what I do is I just put this on my arrow spinner. I do have also, I didn't get it out of storage, but I've got the G5 Flip ASD. That is a basically arrow squaring tool, and that's all it does. But I like this one just as well, and I've got an arrow spinner incorporated into it, so we're going to use this one here. So again, I just kind of roll it on there. I don't have to do a lot. I just have to roll it on there a few times. And again, if you want to use that marker again, what I can do is I can mark on the tip of the arrow here. So I've got that nice and highlighted with this marker. Put it on the arrow spinner. Give it a couple rotations here. And you can see it's almost completely off. There's just a little bit of marker on the edge. But the actual face of the arrow is now clean and has no marker on it. So I can tell that I really squared it good. Now, something I like to do is, even though this end over here is factory cut, I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to square both ends of the arrow here to make sure that, again, everything is perfectly straight, and that I know that I did that squaring, and then it's going to be perfect. So now we're just going to square all these arrows here, and that's going to make sure that our components sit really well, and our components will, again, fit in there square to the tip of the arrow. So, and right, let's keep going down the list. Let's keep going. If at any time you want to pause this video so you can come back to it again, you will have the chapters down below, so you can go back and revisit each step. Okay. Okay. So now we are done with the arrow squaring part of this. We're going to do the more simple menial task of just cleaning off the arrow tips. So what I'll do is I'll kind of start by squirting a little bit of this. I'll just kind of drench all my Q-tips and everything in there. And I'll wipe the outside of the shafts here. Basically, I'll just lay them on here and kind of roll them a little bit. And it's going to wipe out the outside. Then I'm going to take my Q-tips, I'm going to stick it down in the shaft. And this is going to make sure that all your components adhere better to the actual arrow insides. So you can see I'm getting all that carbon dust out of there. So we'll make sure that I clean these really good so that I can have better adhesion to the arrows. If I don't want to do this on speed mode, I'll just take all my arrows like this. Just go one at a time. And just go through them like this. Grab another Q-tip because that was getting all mucked up. We'll go through it a couple times. I got plenty of Q-tips, right? You can see, even though I've gone through all of these at least once, I'm still pulling out some residual carbon dust. Whenever the Q-tip starts getting worn out, though, I will replace it with a new one. Just because I don't want to end up with little bits of Q-tip stuck at the end of the arrow either. So again, this side's going to be much cleaner. This is the Nock end of the arrow, because the only thing I really did over here was square it, but you'll see that you get carbon dust all the way down, even in this end of it, even if all you did was square it. So nice and clean all the way down. And now that the alcohol sat in there a little bit, I've got a few extra Q-tips. I'm just gonna go ahead and go through it again, just on the cut end over here. You can see once you start seeing a clean Q-tip, you know you've thoroughly cleaned the inside of your arrows. So now we've got some cut, clean, squared arrows jumping on to the next step. Okay, so I had to move everything around just because the construction or whatever was going on over there was a little ridiculous. Next what we're going to do is we're going to need our arrow spinner here. And we're going to take our inserts, which are going to be these right here. These are the factory inserts for the Victory HLR. Now, I'm not a fan of the inserts that are made out of aluminum because I felt like in the past, whenever I've hit something hard, like I blew through an animal and hit a tree, the arrow insert would bend, which would also cause the tip of the arrow to break, and I don't want that. So what we're doing here is we're going to use the 50 grain HLR factory inserts here, and these are made out of stainless steel. You can see the little S marked on there. That is made out of stainless steel, and so these are a nice rigid insert. I like too that these HLR inserts and a lot of these Victory shock adapters, they have it basically where the arrow tip, the tip of the carbon shaft will actually go inside the insert slightly, and so that's going to make sure that it is nice and flush, and also it's going to make sure that it fits and spins well. So take these inserts, I'm just going to double check it, spin it, spins great. So next what you're going to need is you're going to need either a torch or a lighter or something like that. You're going to need some hot melt. I've got several different kinds of hot melt and cold melt here. This stuff right here I don't recommend using. This is the blue cold melt. It's supposed to be made for carbon arrows, but this stuff does not hold on very well. I live in Texas here, and a lot of times when I'm shooting, it is well up into the 90s, 95 degrees, and this stuff will literally, at that temperature, 90 to 100 degrees, will give way and it'll let your insert fall out. So we're not going to be using that. Now this right here is the Easton, I forget, it's kind of like the Boning Fairlight. This is the Easton version of the hot melt. You can see I like to save my old hot melt. This thing's looking pretty gross right now. But it basically, I take the old hot melt and I stick it back to it so I can reuse it later. You can heat hot melt up multiple times and still get consistent results. Another one I've got is this right here. This is a little bit softer hot melt that I got from Amazon, and this stuff works really well. It's much more elastic than this right here, so this might work better. And if you're working around cold temperatures, like, you know, or it's getting close to freezing or something like that, you might want something a little bit more flexible, because this stuff sets up pretty hard, and whenever it gets cold, it can shrink a little bit. And lastly, you can always use CA glue, which is basically super glue. That stuff will work as well, but it makes it to where there's a much more permanent installation of that, which is not bad for some people. But if you're a tinkerer like me, like I might use these 50 grain inserts now, and I might use the 100 grain inserts later, depending on what I want to tinker with. And if I use hot melt, I can just heat it up and pull it out. Without the hot melt, I literally have to sit there and knock it out by putting something like a drill bit down here and slapping it out, and I worry about damaging the inside of my arrow. I don't want to do that. So again, we're going to use these Victory inserts. So I've got a pair of pliers here, so that way I don't burn my fingers. I'm just going to clamp this on the end of that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to double check and make sure that whenever I put this in there that it spins properly. Some inserts can have just slightly different tolerances than the tip of the arrow. What's kind of crazy, I've actually had arrows that even after cutting them, they did have just the slightest little bit wobble, like maybe they were 0.003 straightness or something like that, but they had a slight wobble. And then I had an insert that wasn't perfectly square too, and I was able to put the insert in and rotate it inside the shaft, and then basically those two offset, like slight offsets, basically made it to where the arrow spun perfectly well. So, but I'm just going to make sure this one here, these are from the factory, from Victory, so they should spin perfectly well right out of the box. So I'm going to slap it in there, and just like that, I'm going to rotate it a little bit, spin it again. No matter which position I put it in, it spins perfectly well, so we're going to go ahead and glue it in. Okay, so what I'll need for this part, for this step, I'm going to use a pair of pliers. These are just like some Nock pliers here that I've got. And they've got these little sections cut out in there, so I can easily clamp in any one of those positions, I can clamp the insert in there. Okay, And then we're going to want a hard surface. This table will work just fine, but basically you want some hard surface where you got a piece of wood or something like that, because I like to make sure that once I put the insert with the glue in there, I want to shove it down there real good. You could also use something like, hey, your arrow squaring tool or your arrow spinner. It's got a nice hard piece right there. You can use that to push against the arrow. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get this hot. I like to use this little butane torch. I use this thing for everything, cleaning up my 3D prints and stuff. Gets nice and hot, and it stays melted for a while. So I'm going to wipe that hot melt all around that insert. How much hot melt do you need? All of it. Just put a ton of hot melt on there. What it'll end up doing is creating a little ring. Once you push it down in the arrow, it's going to create a ring around it, and you can just pull that off. I'll stick it back on there and reuse it. So now I've got it all gunked up around the insert there. I'm going to heat it back up again. Careful, don't burn yourself. Okay. I'm going to put the tip of my arrow on there and push it down. Some people like to twist it when they push it down. I've never really needed to, so I just give it a nice firm push. Okay. And I'll let that cool. And then after it's cooled, we're going to spin them all to check it. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these arrows here and go ahead and check them after we do them. Now that we've got all those things, I'm going to peel the little ring off around there. Now that the hot melt is cooled, I'm basically going to go through here. I'm going to peel it, spin it. Spins great. Next. Again, peel it. Spin it.
Yes.
Spins great. After this, we're going to go ahead and spin all of them. After we're done spinning all and double checking that everything is perfectly straight and lined up and spins great, then what we're going to do is we're going to go and weigh them all so we can make sure that we're in we got accuracy between all the different arrows here. Here's one right here where it has a little bit of a wobble to it. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. This one has a little bit of a wobble side to side whenever I roll it. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to first take my torch. I'm going to heat up the insert. Do not put the heat on the carbon. Put the heat on the insert there and give it a little twist. So I'm going to put it back on and give it a little twist. And just by literally just heating it up and twisting it a little bit, now it's spinning perfectly. Double check it here. Now I got some hot glue on there I need to get off. But yeah, it spins perfectly now. So again, always double check with the spin after you got your insert set. Make sure everything's spinning correctly. So again, like I was talking earlier, sometimes these stacking tolerances, right, you can get a little bit of a imbalance in it. Maybe just there was a little bit of glue stuck in between the carbon and that, or it didn't completely seat, or maybe it just balanced better whenever it was twisted in there. Not sure exactly what the reason, right? Every arrow is going to be a little bit different. But again, if you have any imbalances, all you do, heat it back up. Rotate it a little bit so heating it evenly. Again, lock it in with the pliers, give it a little push and a twist. Maybe just a little bit more. Sometimes a little press will help too. Okay. There we go. Now it's spinning perfectly. Take that piece of hot melt off. Perfect. Okay. So another one. Again, you don't, just because you have a little wobble in there doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad arrow or something. A lot of times it just means you need to reset that insert. And here's the thing, if I go and I reset that insert, I heat it up and I twist it again and it still doesn't fix it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start back over with that arrow. I'm going to take out the insert and then I'm going to re-square the end of it and then start all that process over again. There shouldn't be any reason why you should scrap an arrow. A lot of people be like, well, that one didn't spin good, so I just didn't use it. Honestly, a lot of times if you just rotate your insert, you can fix a lot of those problems. Glassy smooth. Last one. Glassy smooth again. Okay. Now we're going to test our arrows for weight. We want them to be within, typically half a grain is pretty good. If you can get better than that, I mean, that's 100% ideal, but that's where we're going to aim for. 281.2. There we go. 281.3. That's pretty good. So far, we're literally within a tenth of a grain, which means my cutting was good, which thank God, because that's like the second time I've actually cut arrows myself. 281.3. 281. Was that 281.3? Let me try again. So this one's 281.0, so it's 0.3 of a grain off. I'm not going to scrap it, I'm not doing anything. I'm just setting it aside just in case I get another one that's a little heavy. I can swap the inserts and then hopefully it'll fix that. So next one up. Always make sure when you're weighing your arrows here too that it's not resting on anything, because that's going to throw your weights way off. 281.0. Okay, so let me set that one aside too. Let me double check one of these other ones that I've already weighed. Okay, that's coming out 281 now too. Must have been something on the scale. I'm not sure why they're all coming out 281 now. Yeah, 281. That 0.3 or 0.2 must have been just something on the scale. At 281. .281 even. So 281 even. So I think whenever I change the direction of the scale here, it may be like the table, like if the scale isn't completely flat on a solid surface, it can kind of change that weight. So far, again, they're all exactly 281.0. 281.0. This is the first time I've ever had that. The first time I've ever used or built arrows, and they're all exactly the same. 281.0. This is going to be crazy. If we can get this last one, this is going to be the first time I've ever had every arrow in a dozen come out the exact same weight. 281.0. Okay, so literally every arrow in this bunch weighs in at the exact same amount. So that kind of throws out my need for the other part where it's like saying swapping out inserts and stuff like that, because they've literally got the exact same amount of glue. They've got the exact same amount of carbon. We're in good shape here. So next over here, next what I'm going to do, I've got two more components that I might need to match up, okay? So I've got my lighted Nocks that I'm going to be shooting this year. These are by a company called Keup. These are crazy. They're probably made in China, but honestly, find me an actual lighted Nock that's not partially made in China. And there's this trick that American companies will do sometimes that's really shady, honestly, where they'll say, oh, made in the USA. And what they do is they order all the parts from China, and then they just have somebody assemble it here in the USA. Listen, what I got to say is, I don't care too much. I want, if there was somebody that made American-made Nocks, great, like actually American-made, but honestly, there's not. Nobody makes them. And if they say they do, they're probably lying to you. So I've got a helpful little tool in here for this, as this is going to help me. Let's see if I can find it here in my toolbox. Never mind, I think I lost it. Well, if you have like a Nock fitting tool, that's great. You can use that. These Keup Nocks fit really well. And they are multicolor flashing, and they've got an easy little switch to turn them on and off. I feel like, and I'm going to do this as a project later on, but I'm going to actually try to replace the batteries in some of these, because I found on one of these websites like Alibaba or AliExpress that you can actually order the batteries for them. So I'm going to try that in a future video. But right now, like I said, now we're going to go stick all of these with a lighted Nock, and then we're going to reweigh them. All right, just a quick close-up of these Keup lighted Nocks. Like I say, they've got just a switch right here that you can flip it on and off with. Got a nice bright strobing action on it. I like the strobing action here because that is going to make sure that it's easy to see, because I've had green Nocks get lost in the grass and purple Nocks get lost in the grass. The purple ones were much better, because especially with a highly reflective vein, because sometimes that purple Nock can actually help illuminate like a fluorescent vein. So I really like that. But anyways, we got these. The build quality of these is actually really good. They're very consistent, and what I liked about it is whenever I put it into the end of the arrow, it went in with a snap. Let me see if you can hear it. Yep, didn't make that noise that time, but basically they literally snap in to the end of the arrow. Okay. All right, so now before we weigh them again, we're gonna go ahead and screw in our field points. These are 125 grain field points here. So I'm gonna apologize in advance. This is the second time I've had to record this because before let's do this construction, the audio was unusable and my mic was not working well. So we're recording this again. So here's basically what we ended up with the final build. I had some really weird issues with the inserts. These are the inserts I got here. These are from Amazon and they looked really good. The weight was perfect between every one of them. So that's great. The problem I had is that whenever I put them all the way in the arrows and I spun them, they did not spin accurately. So once I tightened them down, they would wobble really bad. If I loosened them back up a little bit, they would spin a little better. But what's strange, and this may be related to the insert, or like I guess the matching of the insert to the field tips or whatever. But basically I took the inserts out of my old arrows and I put them inside these new ones here. And then I didn't have any issues. All the old inserts from Crafted Archery spun perfectly well. But for some reason, these kind of bullet point shaped inserts did not spin well on my new arrows. But oddly enough, they spun perfectly inside of my old Nexus inserts. I don't understand. I don't know if it's a problem with the insert or the field tips, but again, I put these on the arrow spinner inside of my old arrows, the Crafted Archery carbon ultralights with the Nexus inserts, and they spun perfectly in there. I don't know what's going on. I don't have an answer for that. Either way, we made it work. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna return these inserts and get another batch or something and see if it was I'm gonna return these field points and see if it was the insert or the field point. I don't know. Either way, what we ended up with was some perfectly built arrows. And now, for now, we're gonna be sticking a left fletch 4-vein easy vein on here. If you don't know about the easy veins, they are a sponsor of the channel and I highly recommend it because this is the easiest fletching system you can get. Right now, these veins right here are actually meant for a smaller micro diameter arrow. But what's good is these are meant for a 165 or 164 diameter arrow. These are a 204 diameter arrow. And so instead of gluing them on, I can literally just press fit them on and it allows me to actually kind of change the helical on the fly. So as I torque it and twist it a little bit, I can change how much helical is on there. We're not going to really do that right now. We're just going to fletch them. This is probably one of the fastest parts of the video. So here's how I do it. I've got my whole bucket here of easy veins. All I'm going to do is take my lighted knockout, line it up, give it a little twist, and then just slide it on. So you can hear it's nice and tight, right? Then I get it slid down where I want it to be, just a little bit further. Okay. Then I'm just gonna straighten the fletch out, and there we go. Now it's fletched. And you can see that takes a lot of force to get off. I have to use 2 hands and brace the arrow up against something to get that off. Now I will be changing this in the future and I will do another video on that in the future, but we are going to be getting something really cool from the guy over at Easy Veins. He's going to be giving us some really cool stuff to test out. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel, like this video if you like this content so far. New product testing, at least, we'll see. But you guys are going to be the first to see it here from Easy Veins. Check that out in a future video. So let's go ahead and go through and fletch all these. So I normally don't do a left helical. I just had these laying around already, and so I decided that I was going to use these. All I have to do though is, again, grab it by the bottom, slide it on, and you can hear how tight that fit is. And then I just pull it back a bit and straighten it out, put my Nock back in there. Easiest fletching system on the market. And here's the thing. Let's say I damage one of these fletches, which these are very durable 3D printed fletches. But let's say I damage one. All I have to do is just pull it off, or I could cut it off if I glued it on there, and then just grab another one from the bucket, and slide it back on. So I can replace these literally in the field as I go, just like so. And there we go. Fastest fletching system on the market. And again, these are exceptionally tight because these are actually meant for a
165 or micro diameter 4mm arrow, but hey, I got a 5mm arrow here and they fit on the end just fine. Okay, so we're going to keep chunking along. So far, everything with this has been very impressive. All of the components have lined up, and I haven't checked after these field points, but I'm going to be replacing the field points anyways. Okay, there's another one done. But I'm going to be checking after I replace these field points anyways, and you know, get new fletches. I'm going to recheck and make sure that everything fits perfectly well, or make sure that everything is consistent from one arrow to the next. But you saw whenever I finished assembling these, that everything lined up perfectly, very perfect. So all of the arrows after completing the build were literally the exact same grain weight, which is crazy because that never happens. Usually I'm having to swap out components with the other arrows and find a heavy one and find a light one, switch like the field tips or switch some of the components so that the grain weight lines up between the two of them. So if I've got one that's just a tad heavy and one that's just a tad light, if you swap those components, odds are that you're going to find out that once you swap those two components, now it's perfectly balanced and that these arrows are the same grain weight. Because again, the overall goal is to make sure, where's my spine? There it is. My overall goal is to make sure that these are as close to each other as possible in weight, so that at the end of the day, if I'm not accurate on something, if I miss a shot, I want to know that it was not my gear, it was me doing something wrong. I'm not the best archer in the world. Some might not even say I'm a great archer. I'm pretty okay. But yeah, if I can make sure that my gear is not the issue, I know it's a me problem and I can fix that. Last time I did a build with these easy veins, I did what was called a fletching race. So if you can find anything or any system that will fletch arrows faster and you know, be more accurate, I'm all ears. So I think this is definitely the fastest fletching system, the easiest fletching system. And I would always even argue one of the best because it's the most durable. These things don't pop off once you install them properly, and they're going to last you a long time, and you can replace them in the field. So if you want to get your own easy veins, check out the link in the description below. You can get a discount. You get not only 10% off of your order, then you also get 2 free veins in that box that you get. So that way, if you ever need replacements in the field, you are covered. Now the pricing on the easy veins is per box. So you can buy the whole set all at once and get a few extras to replace if you need to do any field replacements on your arrows. So there we go. We are completely done. I'm gonna go ahead and spin these one more time just for fun. Don't really need to, but just like to see my fletchings, my glowing fletchings spin beautifully. So far, so good. And again, don't forget, guys, stay tuned for my future videos so you can see the easy veins project we got coming up. But here we go. We are all finished. These are our 204 Victory HLR 300s and 27 3/4 inches, ready for the fucking target. And I'm excited to shoot these guys. So thanks for tuning along. If you have any questions, again, let's continue the discussion below, because I feel like everybody can add to this and tell me what you do differently and tell me how it works for you. So thanks for watching. And as always, keep defying the odds.